a host of announcements yesterday, including improved protection for guests. You're also making things a lot easier for hosts to throw up their properties on Airbnb, and you're rolling out verification in 35 different countries. Talk to us about the problems you're trying to solve with these new features.
Yeah, I mean, well, we are expecting still very strong travel demand. That's what we saw last Q3. At the same time, the economy today is similar to 2008 when we started Airbnb. And back then, during the Great Recession, many people were turning to Airbnb to make extra money. And we think people want to do that again. But as we talked to them, they told us there's a couple obstacles to becoming a host. The first is people don't know how to get started. So we wanted to make it really easy. We have a new product called Airbnb Setup, an easy way to set up your Airbnb. And what we do is we match you to a superhost in your area. We have thousands of superhosts around the world in 81 different countries, and it's a little like the Genius Bar, where you can talk to somebody except they're on the phone. They help you through the process. The second thing we realize is people are nervous about having other people in their home, and so we wanted to make a leap forward in making people more comfortable. And so what we are going to do is we are verifying the identity of everyone in 35 countries. This covers 90% of reservations. And by next spring, everyone on Airbnb booking an Airbnb will be verified. We also have reservation screening technology to lower the incident rate of parties. We did a pilot in Australia. Party incidents were down by 40%. And we're increasing damage protection from $1 million to $3 million. And at the end of the day, Emily, what we're trying to do is get more people to put up their actual homes they live in on Airbnb, anticipation of the travel demand, something that I think is going to resonate, especially now during these difficult economic times.
You're also listing your own guest room on Airbnb, Brian, and you seem like kind of a busy guy. Should your guests expect you to be making coffee and chit-chat, or what?
I will make coffee. I have Chesky's chips, the famous chocolate chip cookies. They've been in the family for a few months since I found the recipe on Google. So yeah, I'll be hanging out with them. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff we can do together. And I think the most important reason, I mean, some people ask, why are you doing this? Well, I've always believed that people who build great products build them for themselves. And I also wanted to show people if I could do it, they could do it as well. I mean, obviously, I have to be very thoughtful about who's in my home. And so that's why I'm doing it.
All right, very curious about those Chesky chips. Guess we're going to have to make a booking to find out. Look, you just reported your best revenue ever, but you did warn that bookings are going to moderate. We're heading into a potentially lengthy and very painful economic downturn. There's anecdotal reports about an Airbnb bust, if you will, that hosts are saying bookings are dropping. Are you seeing that happen yet?
We aren't seeing that at their aggregate level. I mean, the best thing I can tell you is what I told everyone a couple weeks ago with our earnings, and that's that we had a record quarter. We had record revenue, record free cash flow of nearly $1 billion, trailing 12-month free cash flow of $3.3 billion. That's almost half a million dollars free cash flow per employee. So obviously, we're in 100,000 markets. We have 6 million homes. So there's going to be some variability, but ultimately what we're seeing is hosts made record earnings this past summer, and we're expecting very strong demand coming. And even if demand were to moderate, I mean, even in a recession, what we've learned is that Airbnb's model is very adaptable, probably the most adaptable model in travel. We have nearly every type of space and nearly every community at nearly every price point around the world. And this is probably why we recovered faster than other travel companies in the midst of the pandemic in 2020. So we are expecting, robust travel. And part of the reason why, Emily, is I think while people are pulling back spending, the last thing some people want to do is stop traveling, because that's the way they get out of their house and meet people. When your office is Zoom, when the theater is Netflix, they want to get out of the house.
That said, Brian, I know when we talked after earnings, you said Airbnb is still hiring. But since then, Meta laying off 11,000 people, Amazon laying off 10,000 people. You have to be thinking about Plan B and strategizing for what if this gets demonstrably worse. How are you being disciplined, just in case the economy just keeps going south?
Well, 2.5 years ago, we lost 80% of our business. We laid off 25% of our employees. And I said at that time that we are going to be now prepared for anything to come, any storm. And so we stayed really disciplined for the last 2.5 years, anticipating difficult times ahead. And we said, no matter what happens to the economy, we do not want to have to change how we run the company. And that's only possible if we stay lean and we stay disciplined. And we only have about 6,000 employees. So we're really lean. Beginning of the year, we were only planning to hire 7% more people than the year before. When many other tech companies that weren't growing even as fast as us were going to hire 20, 30% more people. So because of that, and because of the strength of our business, we are not stepping on the brakes. In fact, we're stepping on the gas. We are still hiring. We're not freezing. We're not cutting. We're growing.
Thousands have been laid off at Twitter alone, and I know you're a Twitter power user. You also have more than a decade of experience managing a community business. What do you think about Elon's moves so far? Is what he's doing good for the Twitter community? Is it good for Twitter's business?
Well, I am a fan of verification. I mean, that's probably obvious. I guess actions speak louder than words. And if I was running Twitter, I would want to verify every single person on Twitter, whether you charge for them or make it free. If the vision is to be a digital town square and be the most trusted form of information, then you want to start by trusting the people sharing that information. And so I think verification is at the center of Twitter. The only other thing I'd say is, yes, I think Twitter years ago had a choice. Is it a protocol like HTTP, or is it a community? And I think over the last decade, they've gone the path of a community. And so to run Twitter is to say you're in the community building business. And to be in the community building business, you have to be passionate about managing the nitty-gritty of different stakeholders. And that's what I think he's going to be spending his time doing. And I wish him the very best doing that.
So look, you tweeted that you heard guests loud and clear about pricing transparency. Yes. You're going to provide more upfront transparency starting next month. Still looking at the responses to your tweets, they were all over the place. Some people think you're doing not enough. Some people think you're doing too much. Can you really make everyone in a community happy?
No, you can't make everyone in a community happy. All you have to do is make sure that you consider all of your stakeholders. You know, we have guests, we have hosts, we have employees, we have shareholders, we have community we operate in. And people need to know that we are listening. And I'm not just in an ivory tower. I'm not just looking at data. I'm engaging with people on Twitter. But we're also being very systematic in our research, talking to our very best guests, talking to the very best hosts. And the most important thing is people see you listen. People see you continue to improve. People see that you're humble enough that if you get something wrong, you're willing to admit it and you're going to improve. And we are a company that will never, ever stop improving our product. So whether or not you think we have a great product today, look at the trajectory. And I hope people feel like it's going to be even better in the future.
How are you watching the crypto carnage? Does this mean no crypto payments on Airbnb anytime soon or ever?
Never say never, but definitely not anytime soon. And not anytime soon has nothing to do with the economy or the market. Just that, in life, one of the things I learned, Emily, from the pandemic is you can do anything you want in your life, you just can't do it all at the same time. You have to have ruthless prioritization. And one of the pitfalls of tech the last 10 years, especially the last 5 years, is probably a plethora of capital, too much money. And too much money means too many things at the same time. And so we had to get really disciplined. We said what we need to focus on is great customer service and getting enough hosts. And those became our priorities. Now, as far as crypto, I think that generally the analogy I'd make, it's like we're all in a nightclub and the lights just came on. And so suddenly I feel like we have to just kind of take a really cold, hard look, have a reality check. The technology is really interesting. I think we have to be very careful, though, about this frenetic get in on any technology trend before it's over. I think we're going to be very, very careful about that because that's when discipline goes down. I think people regret the decisions they make when they have this mentality that someone else is making money, I'm not. You really got to always focus on fundamentals. You always have to focus on building things for other people of value. And if the more you learn about something, less you understand it, you just got to slow down and really just make sure you know what you're doing.
All right, time to go to another nightclub then, maybe. Nancy Pelosi just stepped down as House Democratic leader. We are entering a new political landscape. Airbnb does its fair share of lobbying. How does a new Congress impact or change your plans?
Well, I guess I'd say a couple things. First of all, I would congratulate her on this historic run that she's had. I think of this very difficult time as an opportunity for us to really partner together with regulators and policymakers, because I think ultimately people around the world need help, especially in this country. And the kind of help they need is economic help. So to the extent that we can help, be helpful, and be an economic lifeline, That's what we're really going to be focused on. And Airbnb is also mostly regulate the city level anyway, but to the extent that we can be helpful, that's what we're going to be focused on right now.
And you've got such deep vision into so many different parts of the world. Are there parts of the world where you're expecting more softness than others? Obviously, we know that the Americas have been strong. What about Latin America? What about APAC? Are you expecting more tightness there?
A little hard to say. I mean, North America's been quite strong. Asia has not been as strong the last few years, but it's less economically driven and more that the borders are not as freely open for travel. And Asia is more of a cross-border market, whereas North America, especially the United States, is very much a primarily domestic market. So hard to say, but I will say that our business model is very, it's very adaptable. So for example, when borders got shut off and people weren't traveling the cities and they weren't really traveling for business, we were able to recover because people got in cars during the pandemic and they're able to stay in Airbnbs just a couple hundred miles away. So however travel demand changes, I think our business is going to be able to adapt. And we're probably the most adaptable platform in travel because we have the most amount of spaces and the most amount of communities all over the world.
So quickly then, how does this all play out for Airbnb in the next year between the rise of long-term stays, the bounce back of hotels, customers under pressure? Do you see a shift in the mix?
Maybe a little bit, but it's probably going to modulate. So, for example, we had a huge boom in long-term stays, or really stays of 30 days or longer at the beginning of the pandemic. People wanted to get out of the house. They wanted to travel and live on Airbnb as they had more flexible remote policies. That's now normalized. For quite a long time, about a fifth of our nights, about 20% of our nights, are for stays longer than a month. Nearly half of our nights are for stays longer than a week. That will probably continue. I think in the long run, in many, many years from now, probably more than our business will be longer stays because I think this is just an emerging market. And I think fewer and fewer people are going to be tethered to one area, and fewer people in the future are going to have one-year leases. But I expect that travel is going to remain robust. You know, one possibility is as the economy slows, there might be a mix shift from cross-border travel to more domestic travel, partly because international flights are expensive, and some families say, hey, let's do a vacation nearby. But again, Airbnb, we could definitely adapt to that. We did during the pandemic. We can do so again.
Okay.